Hi guys, Catty Cat here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 27 female soft bust Obitsu. I ordered this one in a medium sized bust. You can order them in small, medium or large. You can get them in a range of different sizes from 27 centimeter, 25, 23, 21 centimeter. They actually just discontinued this body, which is a shame because it's one of my favourites. And they've replaced it with a new one which I might be taking a look at later, but for now this is what we've got. We're going to be putting Onyx over here, Pullip Chill, onto this Obitsu, and I'm going to show you how I do that because my way is a little bit different from how other people seem to do it. The thing I really like most about Obitsu is that it gives her a more adult look. I find the Pullip body a bit skinny and a bit teenage girl, whereas I quite like the adult look with the Obitsu. I like that they come in different sizes and different busts, so that gives your Pullip quite a range of versatility. You could have her tall, short, medium, small, large. So I'll just demonstrate now for you. You can see with her legs, they go all the way back. This allows her to kneel, to sit. She can twist, she can turn. She can flex this way, she can flex that way, she can bend forwards. Her arms have a really great range of motion, allowing you to pose her in all sorts of different ways. When we take a look at that compared with the type 4, for example, you can see her legs only go back so far, so she can kneel but she can't sit on her legs. She's quite stiff, she's quite clicky. Her wrists are very fragile and have a tendency to break. Her ankles are very fragile and have a tendency to break. And you're stuck really with just this one hand. Obitsu comes with interchangeable hands, so you can have hands that are grabbing, hands that are fists, hands that make the peace sign. And that just, again, it just allows for a different range of variability. And I just prefer it. So she comes with these spare neck pegs. The way a lot of people put Pullip onto an Obitsu is to file these down because her eye mechanism that makes her eyes move gets in the way, so you need to file these down quite low. I also find that with Pullip's head being quite heavy, these tiny pins that attach her neck to her head are quite fragile and have a tendency to snap, which has happened to me in the past, so I tend to use these. These are overall buttons. They're like a flat plastic disc with a metal loop coming out the back. I just find this a bit sturdier. You don't need to file it down to fit under her eye mechanism, and I think it just works much better. So we will ready the Obitsu first, I think. I brought along this skeleton of an Obitsu just to show you what's going on underneath this soft vinyl. So this is where she would attach at the waist to the legs. She can pivot here, she can twist and turn here, she can pivot here and twist and turn, she can pivot and twist and turn at the neck. Whilst this allows for a really great range of motion, it sometimes with a heavy head leads to what's called floppy Obitsu, where her heavy head is putting all this weight and she's just quite floppy. You can solve this problem by adding some thin layers of tape here on the ball joints here and here, or by putting foam around this, which just adds a bit of padding on the inside and prevents her from being floppy. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to put her straight on this and see how it goes. If she needs that done later, I will show you how to do that. So the first thing we're going to want to do is to remove this neck peg that she came on. The best way to do that is to take her arms off, push the soft vinyl down till you can see the silver peg, and I prefer to use a thick needle. You could use a toothpick for this, but I do find with a toothpick that it has a tendency sometimes to snap, which is a bit frustrating. A thick needle just does the job. Pushing. Once it's sticking out this side, if you can just take a pair of pliers, grab at this, ease it out, neck peg off. Make sure you don't lose that because that can be quite frustrating. Then I'm just going to push this in here. Sometimes this is a bit thick and you have to manipulate it a bit with pliers to get it to fit. But the stiffness does help prevent a floppy head, which is a good thing. Ooh. I'm just going to pull this closer so I can get this in and then I'll show you. Okay, so now we have the neck peg on, ready to go on the doll. It's quite fiddly getting that little pin back in. Pliers highly recommended. So in order to get the doll ready, we need to remove this skull cap. If you have your pull-up that's headed in two parts, this is a bit easier because you don't have to do this. Luckily, Chill's head is just held on with blue tack at the moment, so that makes that fairly straightforward to remove. Then she's got 3 screws, one at the top here and 2 at the bottom. So let's just go ahead and remove those. Just wasn't catching that one. Still not catching that one. So you can see in the back of her head, here's her eye mechanism. If this is your first time taking apart a pull-up, just take some time to get familiar with all the different things going on inside her head. These are the pegs that close her eyelids. They come out with no screws. These are the springs that hold her eyelids up, the top here. This is what moves her eyes back and forth. If you wanted to remove this to re-chip her, you've got 3 screws down here. It's a good idea to keep some little jars or a little plate or something so that you can keep the screws from different parts separate and don't get them all mixed up. So we're just going to pop her body, head off her body, put it beside that one that's fallen down. So you can see the gap between the eye mechanism and the neck is not particularly big. On the newer pull-ups it's even smaller, so you can see that by using these neck pegs that she came with, it would require quite a lot of work to make them as small as you needed them to be. This way, just it's a much quicker process, it's a much sturdier process. And once you're pretty confident that her head's in there nice and tight, you can go ahead and put this back together. I'm just going to So I just completely removed the screws from the back of her head. That makes it a lot easier just to clip it back together and make sure everything's lined up. I'm forgetting to put these parts back in. Don't forget these parts. Make her eyes open and close. Pullip Chill's older, so she doesn't actually have the clips to keep her eyes closed. So when you see the screws out of her head, the 2 bottom ones here are slightly longer than the top one there, so just pay attention to what you're doing if this is your first time doing it. Make sure you've got things organised, you know what's going back and where. And I'll just put these screws back in and show you how she looks. Okay, screws back in. Obitsu body complete. You can see she just looks a bit more grown up, a bit taller. Let's get her skull cap back on. I probably will glue this on at some point, but for now I just want to get familiar with this Obitsu that she's on. And yeah, see how it goes, see if it needs tightened anywhere. You can also buy Obitsus with magnets in their feet, which helps them stand up a bit better, but it doesn't work if they're wearing shoes. So you can see, even though there's not too much height difference between the three bodies, it does just make her a bit taller. It makes her look a bit more grown up and feminine, I think. I really like the look. I will do a photo shoot soon of her all dressed up and looking proper, and yeah, I'll share with you guys. You can let me know what you think. But you can see with these overall buttons, it does just make it a much simpler process. Sometimes you have to manipulate this loop a little bit to get it to fit in the neck, which is probably the hardest part, matched with getting this pin back in, because when her vinyl neck is being pulled down, it's quite fiddly to keep that low and get the pin in and hold all this still. But just take your time, familiarise yourself with what you're doing, get used to it, have a think about what you need before you start. So for this tutorial I've used an overall button, a butter knife. The reason I'm using a butter knife is because it's not very sharp, so it just allows you to pry things without damaging the plastic. A small screwdriver. Again, I would recommend getting a screwdriver set and just familiarising yourself with which ones work for which parts, because not all of these screws, as you can see, are the same size. A small jar for keeping your spare screws in. As you go along on your customizing journey, you'll find yourself with a lot of spare and broken parts, which is how I've ended up with this to show you. You can see this arm is really yellowed, so I will hopefully do a video at some point about a process I've been using to de-yellow plastic, and we'll have a look at that. But yeah, that's just from my spare parts bin. That's it for today, guys. That's how to put a pull-up on an Obitsu my way. Tune in next time. Please like and subscribe. It does make a huge difference. And thank you for watching.